بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. My honored brothers and sisters, we continue with our series in awe of the Quran, touching on some of the themes and messages of each chapter of the Holy Quran, and we find ourselves in the 30th chapter, Surah Ar-Rum, which translates as the Romans. Surah Ar-Rum, as we were just listening to the recitation, keeps repeating a particular word. As you go through the surah, you keep hearing the word ayat. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, and from among his signs, and then Allah will mention something. And then وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, from among his signs he'll mention something. And later in the chapter, and he'll say, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ, indeed in this our signs. And then he might say, for those that believe, for those that reflect, for those that think, for those that understand. All of us are familiar with this surah because every time we go to a wedding, we get a little card or one of those candy things or maybe a projector that puts up the famous verse, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. And from amongst his signs is that he created for you from yourselves mates, until the end of the verse. But the surah speaks about so many other signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in fact, the surah challenges what we might traditionally think of as a religious sign, because it touches the creation of human beings from clay. But it also touches our diversity in tongue and in color, in ethnicity and race. It touches the miracles of the heavens and the earth, whether it's our dependence on the rain. Alhamdulillah, this year has been plenty of rain, and you see the difference in the grocery store and the prices and the lack of restrictions on your water usage. But then once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala withholds, none of our technology can rid us of our basic need of water. And He speaks about the winds, and He speaks about riba and usury and zakah and economics. So many things in the human creation, but then combining these, all of them as ayat, signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And my brothers and sisters, ayah, you always hear me translate it as verse when I'm talking about the Holy Quran. But technical terms are not understood through translation, they're understood by definition. So the root meaning of ayah is actually that it's a sign, it's an indicator. And the poet says, the Arab poet AbuTaleb says, وَلَهُ فِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ آيَةٌ تَدُلُّ عَلَى أَنَّهُ الْوَاحِدُ. That in everything there is a sign pointing that He is only one. And this surah embodies that and takes that to another level, because it points out all these things that we experience, that we reflect, but we forgot that they're all from one source, that they're all from one common origin. And if we could listen, we would hear the winds and the mountains and the land and the sky and the food and the animals and the heavens and the earth and the stars, all screaming, all shouting, all emphasizing that their Creator is one. In reality, my brothers and sisters, all of the universe around us goes like a one-way street in downtown Baltimore or DC. Everything is worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing deviates from its course or rebels, except for us, the children of Adam and the jinn. We are the only ones that when Allah gave us a choice, some of us comply and some of us rebel. When we come back, I've been speaking to you about many signs of Allah in creation. And one of the challenges of our time, and particularly for the younger generation, is that because we are surrounded by the fabrication of man, we are distanced from the creation. Excuse me. We are distanced from the creation of Allah. When I hear about the fire of hell, excuse me, my voice is going. Pardon me. When I hear about the fire of hell, if all I can imagine is a little metal ring on an oven glowing, it is different from when I experience a campfire. And I see that as I draw closer, I can't go past this point, it's too hot. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the heavens and the earth and the trees and the rivers, we have to get out of our sardine cans, out of our apartments, and connect and experience with creation so that we can feel it, so that we can experience these signs. Coming back to the Quran, there are signs in the heavens and the earth, and the surah speaks about them. But then there are signs that we are hearing every night here in Ramadan. Signs in the Holy Quran. Because when I say ayah, because I don't have a direct translation, I say verse. And you think of a verse of poetry like a unit of speech. But that's not what ayah means. Ayah means a sign in the same way I speak about the signs in the heavens and the earth. Meaning that every ayah in the Holy Quran is a sign and an indicator of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single one. And then we combine the ayat into surahs. And we translate that as chapter because the language is lacking. But in reality, surah indicates an elevated group. Something that cannot be topped. And the Quran challenges humanity. So bring a surah from its like. And it also says elsewhere, say if the jinn and mankind all gathered that they would bring the like of this Quran, they would not bring its equivalent. And surah, also as we've been indicating in our series, some ulama have indicated that it's a combination of ayat that revolve around particular meanings, particular themes. Very quickly, why is the surah named the Romans? Well, the surah begins, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alif Lam Mim, Ghulibat Ar-Rum. The Romans have been defeated. And this occurred around the time of Revelation. The Romans, or the Byzantines, and the Persians were the two great world superpowers of that time. And the Romans were defeated enormously until most people of that time believed they would never recover from the defeat of that battle. So the Quran made a prediction that at that time was in the future. It says, غُلِبَتِ الروم في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع سنين. In the lowest of the land or the neighboring land, and after their defeat, they will be victorious in a few years. في بضع سنين. بضع in Arabic language means 3 to 9 years. And on that day, the believers will be joyous with the victory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu Bakr actually made a wager based on these ayat with one of the polytheists of Mecca, based on this prediction. Because the Quran predicted this and it was in the future, and people and historians thought this was utterly impossible. But indeed, they had an incredible recovery, and the miraculous nature is even deeper than this, talking about the elevation of the land and so on. So the name of the surah is an indicator of one flavor of miracles and signs in the Holy Quran. So the Quran is a book of guidance, but to challenge humanity, it has miracles in science, miracles in thought, miracles in history, miracles in sociology, miracles after miracles after miracles, each of us connecting with it at our own level. A tragedy that we experience is many of us will search for the miracles of Allah on YouTube or through others or on lectures, but we will enter our graves and never seek the miracles of Allah in our own lives. And in reality, some of the most powerful miracles are the ones that can't be shared here on the microphone, but the ones that touch you as an individual. The moment when you lose your job and you ask 12 people, they all help you with nothing. And then you raise your hands to Allah and Allah brings you ease from where you didn't think it was possible. When a married couple, 10 years, they're searching for that child until they lose all hope. And then Allah accepts and He grants them the child that they wished. When a mother, during this Ramadan, Allahu Akbar, we get like two hours of sleep at night, and the child picks the middle hour, right in the middle. That's when they're going to scream and wake up. And they've got gifts for them in the diapers, and they want food, and they want attention, and this. Every human reason to hate this child and get away from them. And yet, from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah put a love and an attachment between parents and children that is the closest human thing we have between the love of Allah to His servants. The most selfless, unconditional love we have. It is not like Allah's love, but it's the closest thing we experience. When we feel Allah's miracles personally, the relationship becomes more powerful and more personal. Next, we have the 31st chapter, Surah Luqman. And Surah Luqman, among other themes, discusses the issue of raising children in a beautiful dialogue between Luqman and his son. I don't have enough time to cover it here, but I want you to go back and read these verses and read their explanations with your children, or look up a lecture online. Luqman speaks to his son in a beautiful dialogue where he touches on not associating partners with Allah, where it touches on goodness to parents, where it touches on a description of who Allah is. Not just the name, not just the concept, but making Allah real for his son. And he talks to him about how Allah will bring everything forth, even if it's a mustard seed in a stone or anywhere in the heavens and the earth. And he keeps repeating as he speaks to his son, Ya bunay, my son. And you feel the softness and the gentle tone and the connection between a loving parent and his son. As if the parent speaks from their experience, speaks from their wisdom, speaks from their understanding, but they are not far from that child. They're relatable, they're close, they're human. He even goes into the issues of establishing prayers and enjoining right and wrong. And he starts talking about the finer points of behavior and etiquette. One of the linguistic points that I love in the Quran, it says, وَلَا تُصَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ. This comes from the Arabic word meaning a disease that comes to camels. If you've ever seen a camel in real life, they're these majestic beasts, right? I was expecting like Aladdin camels, like these things starving and about to fall over. No, they're huge beasts. And so to get up on one, it has to bend down like twice and lower its neck. And so وَلَا تُصَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ comes from a disease that comes to the camels where their necks are stuck upright. So he's saying, don't let your neck, my son, become like that with your nose in the sky, walking among people in arrogance. And he says to be moderate in your pace. And he says, lower your voice, because the most detestable of voices is the braying of the donkey. The points here are endless, but too quickly. First of all, I cannot advise you on how to raise your children. My own child is still in the oven, right? He's still young and he hasn't grown up, and I'm very fearful of my account before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I can speak to you as one who was born and raised in this country. And I will say that American youth, unlike many of the countries of the ancestry of this congregation, many of us were brought up in countries where we take our values primarily from individuals. And the village and the community has a strong influence on that child. In America, youth tend to take their values from institutions. Until even the most private matters, the relationships between men and women and education, all of these are part of school curriculum, where they were traditionally part of the household. This is important because most of us as parents lack the ability to stay continuously there for our children from birth to growing up. Often, many people in their teen or adolescent years experience a disconnect between the child and these parents. In that moment, the parents that were not only disciplinarians and not only set the rules, but have a relationship of trust with that child, are the ones that are typically most successful, because the child comes back as they navigate their way. And I say this because this is a subtle point in Surah Luqman. I don't want any of us to miss it as we examine it. The humanity and the closeness and the care and the love of Luqman to his child, even as he speaks about affairs from the oneness of Allah, to worship, to character, to etiquette, to behavior. This should not be lost on any of us. That really helping another starts not with just knowledge of how to help them, but starts with love. And you are really not empowered to help someone that doesn't know and believe and trust that you love them and you have their best interest in mind. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to elevate our families and to protect our children and to protect us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our children the coolness of our eyes and to make us leaders for the righteous in the hereafter. Allahumma ameen wa salamu alaykum wa rahmatullah.